Dirt late model car driver Tyler Stevens had a number of run-ins with Kyle Larson over the week during the Wild West Shootout. He will be joining us to discuss what exactly happened, his comments that he had for Kyle Larson, and whether or not he actually did get in touch with Kyle Larson to talk about it. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in Tyler Stevens to join us here at John Trent Racing. Welcome to the channel, Tyler.
All right, man. I appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. First off, I saw this over at Flow Racing, and I feel like this wasn't even reported during the Wild West Shoot. I feel like I watched like almost everything, but the first one, and I guess you had with Kyle Larson, was a right rear shock dropped off his car and then struck you in the helmet and fractured your orbital bone under your right eyelid. How
Yeah,
how are you doing?
man. We're healing up. I mean, it was that's one of those deals that was a freak accident. I think what had happened, he had a shock break or shock mount break, and we had I'd passed him at the point that it had broke, and then they had a caution because he had broke that shock, so it was laying actually in the back straightaway. Well, they had got it off the shock off the racetrack, but we had restarted, and the shock mount that was attached to the bottom of the shock had broke off, and it was actually probably 80 foot down from where the shock was laying. And on that restart, it had got kicked out from under a car, and that's what had come through and busted the front of my helmet and got me in the bottom of the eye. And just one of those deals. I mean, like I say, I don't think that's anybody's fault. I mean, no racer wants their shock to fall off, especially entering the corner at 100 miles an hour. But I don't think that's anybody's fault. I think that's just one of those freak deals that when you pull on the racetrack, there's a possibility of something like that happening.
Wow. So you said here on Flow Racing about like 2 weeks ago that it would take a couple weeks for your eye to heal.
Yeah,
How's your eye doing?
man, it's doing a lot better. So, right after it happened, it had got really, really sore and tender under my eye, and that's just from where that orbital bone had cracked there. But that's all healed up. It's not sore, nothing under my eye. And as far as my vision goes, it had actually left a big like a spot on my cornea. I'd went to the eye doctor there while we was out in Vado, and it left a spot on my cornea pretty good. And if I'd closed just my good eye, it was bad, blurry, and kind of cloudy looking. But it's almost back to the point to where I don't even really know that. I mean, I can see fine. It doesn't hurt anymore. I mean, we're good to go as far as that goes.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you've fully healed there, or for the most part, fully healed. That's great. Well, let's get into this though here too. Before I get to what Kyle Larson had to say here and whether or not he contacted you, let's look at kind of this is the replay that we got from Flow Racing here of what happened on this is night 4 during the heat race. This is the night after Larson basically dropped out of the Chili Bowl. He wrecked a couple times there, put himself behind the 8 ball there, and then obviously did not have a really good night qualifying for the Chili Bowl. And then he came back to Vado and was having an absolutely terrible night too. But this is what they had here. You're in the number 2 car there. Larson's in the black car. And this is pretty much what they have for us here. Obviously, I don't feel like we get the full picture. So we'll get your story here, but let's look at what they show us.
Yeah.
So it looks like he tried to almost go underneath of you. The cars got caught together.
So that's definitely
what happened?
So that's definitely you catch the very tail end of that. What led to us being hooked together is he actually ran his right front tire into the back of my left rear tire, and my left rear tire had sucked his car kind of up over my left rear tire. So in the meantime of all that happening, that's why we ended up hung up. I know he said in his interview that I'd been running the top, and I had for 2 or 3 laps, but the lap and a half before me and him crashed, I'd ran the bottom the whole time. And I don't know, because that what you see there is about all that I could see. They said that he had got a run down the back straightaway, and I was running the bottom. I was clearly, from my perspective, I was clearly on the bottom, but he got a run and decided to go to the bottom as well. Even though I left him plenty of a lane on the top, he decided to go to the bottom. And he just kind of ran through me. And I don't think there was any debate with him that he ran through me. He admitted he was frustrated and had a bad, we was both having a bad night. We qualified bad. We were both kind of in the same situation. We had been running good. We had both had speed. We had both been running good. And then He breaks the shock, has a bad night. He goes to the Chili Bowl, doesn't have a good night. He comes back. We were both had an off night qualifying, and we were trying to survive a heat race. And that's what had me the most frustrated is we're both trying to survive to run the B here. And then he comes in there and destroys 2 cars. And it's not like he just tore the door in the quarter up. I mean, it got the header, the 4-link brackets, the birdcage plates, the axle tube, the wheel, the tire. I mean, $7,000 worth of damage. But that's part of it. I get that. Like, I'm not asking for him to. I've read comment after comment of people on there saying, "Oh my," they think that he's like, and he is. He's a great racer. Like, he's a great race car driver. I'm not taking anything as far as that goes. I mean, that's an obvious. He's a good racer. But we all make bad decisions every now and then. No matter how good you are, how perfect you are, there's always going to be a bad decision made. And in my opinion, this was a bad decision that was made. And all I was hoping for is he would have had the decency to walk down there and say, "Hey man, I screwed up. I run into you. Run in there over my head, and I destroyed 2 race cars." At that point, me and him could have shook hands, and it would have been done and over. There would have been none of this. And his fan base they're strong, but you can tell by reading the comments of all the people that are commenting. They either A, didn't watch, or B, didn't read his interview afterwards, because it's like they have no idea. I mean, of what actually took place. I think I actually had one of his diehard fans that was making pretty terrible comments that I just responded back to it. Finally, I'd read enough, and I just responded back. And I was like, "Why don't you just take 2 minutes, watch the replay, and go to Dirt on Dirt and read his interview, and then private message me your thoughts?" Man, I got a 2-page long private message back of how he's apologizing and he's sorry, and he was extremely wrong, and what Kyle Larson did was wrong. And I mean, he ended up ordering T-shirts and stuff
Oh,
like that from me. So it was cool that person was a big enough man to say, "Hey man, I'm wrong. I was just siding with him because I think he's a great racer, and you're somebody that I've never heard of." And essentially that's the bad part about being a regional racer going against a national racer, is they may or may not, if they don't know who I am, they're not going to side with me, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And that's just part of racing. You learn to kind of accept that. And I'm out there racing just like he is. And it was unfortunate because that essentially ended our week. We did race one night after that, but our axle tube was so bent, we were out just wasting money and tires and fuel. So we decided to skip the finale and come home. So
so obviously you're
at this
still
point,
there
it is
for.
what it is. I haven't heard anything from him. I haven't
Okay.
heard anything from any of them guys. I did hear from Bill Stein Shocks. Aaron from Bill Stein did call and check on me as far as when the shock broke and all that. He did call. So hats off to them guys. I appreciate them checking on me, but um, still at a little bit of a loss of words. That even if Kyle didn't want to call and apologize, even if somebody would have said, "Hey, I'm calling on behalf of him," that'd have been okay. I'd have let it go, and I've already let it go. But not saying that. I mean, if I don't know. I just, looking back on it, there's a million different scenarios. I tried to keep my cool the best I could, and I tried to handle the interview with Dirt on Dirt as professionally as I could, because I still have my sponsors and my family that I want to represent well. But the frustration level was at a boiling point for sure.
Yeah, so I guess if you had anything to say to Kyle Larson, what would you have to say now? If he called you up and
Uh-oh,
he
I
did
can't hear you.
apologize, or sorry, if you had anything to say to Kyle Larson, what would you have to say to him now?
Man, I mean, nothing any different. I don't. I still feel like he was in the wrong, and I still feel like if you would have reversed the roles and I would have run over him like he did me, there would have been people down there ready to hang me from my lift gate. Um, it just, I feel like it's a double standard a little bit. You know, I'm not someone that works very closely with Kevin, and it has a deep vested um, in Kevin's dirt late or I'm sorry, and Kyle. Kevin Rumley talked to me, and me and him kind of butted a little bit of heads there for a little bit, but he did apologize. So Kevin, I don't know if he was trying to apologize on behalf of Kyle. He never did say that, but he did. He apologized more or less for the shock breaking. He didn't. What Kyle did was, in his opinion, okay, I guess.
So, what are your plans for the rest of the 2024 season? Where do you move on from the Wild West Shootout?
Man, so I'm regrouping right now. Obviously, car needs a lot of work, and we're slowly getting that. We got a new shop being finished up that we're trying to get moved into, and going to make things a lot nicer to work out of. And there's a lot of good things going right now, and we're going to try to get regrouped here. And I honestly don't know. I've looked at a few of the schedules, and a lot of it's going to depend on weather. We're going to hit a bunch of MLRA and probably some comp cam stuff, and we'll hit some World Outlaws and Lucas races as they come to racetracks that I'm somewhat familiar with. I know that World Outlaws is going to like Boot Hill and Greenwood, Louisiana, so we're going to go down there. We've had some success there quite a bit, and we'll go to a few other racetracks that I've got a little bit of a notebook at, and we're going to just. That's the good thing, kind of being self-funded and owning your own team. I can pick and choose kind of where I want to go and win. If I don't want to race, it can sit in the shop on the lift, and we'll go to the lake or we'll go on a vacation with the family. It really doesn't matter to me.
All right. Well, is there anyone you want to thank? Any of your sponsors or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. Keith Hammett, Truck and Construction, they've came on board and they've helped us a ton, and we're looking forward to them staying on all the rest of the year. And James A. Rogers Excavating, Penske Shocks, those guys have been great. They've been helping us a bunch, and we're looking forward to some new stuff that we got working with them. And Tony Hatfield at Modco Racing Engines, Longhorn Chassis. We've got a bunch. Southern Bell Apparel, Boomland Fireworks, Super B Speedway. I mean, we've got a bunch of people. D&D Well Service. We've got a bunch of people that are really great. So I thank them, and through this whole experience and going to Votto, it was a really, really good time. And without them, we wouldn't have been able to do it for sure.
Do you plan on going back to the Wild West Shootout next year?
Probably not. In all honesty, probably not. Not knocking the event because it's really, really cool. I think they need to iron a few odds and ends out. Obviously, it's successful, and obviously they do a really, really good job with it. But I think there needs to be a little bit more tech that goes on, because the tech official would tell one of us one thing, and then it would never get checked. And I know they're trying to run a very fast-paced show to get everybody to be able to watch and everything back home. But at the end of the day, we all want to race on a level playing field. And I know that some things have been said and brought up, and some major sponsors of that event wasn't real happy of how everything went on there. So hopefully there will be some changes made to the way they do tech, whether it's pre-race, post-race, whatever, because there are some things that need to be addressed there. But with that being said, I don't see myself going back out there. We raced 6 days, and we were out there almost 2 weeks, and it's just a long time for me to be away from my business and my family and stuff like that. We don't do this for a living. I do commercial signage and wraps for a living, and me being gone 2 weeks is just really, really tough for me to do.
All right, and you said you had T-shirts. Where can people find your merch?
Yeah,
your
for sure.
merchandise?
We got all our new merchandise is on the website at tylerstevensracing.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tyler, for joining me here on John Trent Racing. I hope you have a successful 2024 season. Hope to see you on some of those World of Outlaws and Lucas Oil events there. I'll definitely be looking out for you. And thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, man, no problem. And like I say, I don't. One last thing, I don't want anyone to think that I don't respect or Kyle Larson, because I've caught a ton of heat from all his diehard fans, which is fine. I just think that every racer deserves to be raced with the respect that he wants in return, and I don't feel like I got that. So, with that being said, anyone that has negative opinion and negative comments, and they're all saying, "Well, he's crying, well, he's this, he's that," I encourage all of you to watch the replay and all of you to read his interview on Dirt, because I think it's pretty clear that he agrees that he was at fault. So, with that being said, with all the negative comments, I mean, my mom and dad have called and they're freaking out about all these people's stuff they're writing, and it's just it got out of hand when it could have been handled in about 15 seconds of an apology. Um, and like I say, he ain't going to apologize, and that's fine. He don't have to. At the end of the day, he's going back to get ready to race his NASCAR season, and that's great. And I'm getting ready to start replacing parts on a bent up dirt late model. I get it. But whether he's a NASCAR racer or races 4 cylinders at a weekly racetrack, it's the same amount of respect across the board. Everybody wants to be raced with the same amount of respect. And that's what I feel like we didn't get. And it's not just me. I feel like he didn't at the Chili Bowl was the same situation. And it's just, I think it's got a little bit out of hand. I understand there's probably a lot of pressure on him to run good, but that doesn't make up for not using your head while you're behind the wheel.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate
Anytime,
that.
man. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
See you.